Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and it's Monday. That means it's time to hit the waiver wire. Week 9 is just about in the books, and what a Week 9 it was. You had marquee matchups with big-time teams going against each other. You had football from morning till night, from 9 in the morning till almost midnight Eastern. It was a beautiful time. We also had some incredible things happen. We're going to talk about them, how that's going to impact your waiver wire this week for Week 10. And to help me do it, of course, is my patty cakes, Pat Fitzmaurice, and DBro, Derek Brown, the king of bros, the fantasy bro. We're here for you every single week right here on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe to our YouTube channel over here at Fantasy Pros, because good things happen when you do. And Pat, I mean, you had Dare Ogunbowale kicking field goals. You had Joshua Dobbs, who didn't know the names of the guys he was playing with, who didn't take a single snap in practice, go out there and win a road game for the Vikings. I know that's tough for you as a Packers fan, but how amazing was that Joshua Dobbs performance?
Oh, it was very incredible, and I think we're going to probably even talk about him a little bit on the show today. And Dare Ogunbowale, Joe, thank you for allowing me to shout out my fellow Marquette High School graduate. Shout out Milwaukee. Dare, what a clutch field goal, man. The guy is just super useful. He is the Swiss Army knife of backup running backs. Four-sport
athlete there, just like Pat Fitzmaurice, by the way, I believe. Pat was football, baseball, swimming, and golf. I believe those are the 4 sports, right? I mean, that sounds like 4 sports that Pat would be pretty good at.
Cutting class, beer drinking, different
all
sports.
The dirty laundry getting aired this Monday morning. You love
Pat
to see
Fitzmaurice looks like the choir boy, but maybe a little bit different history.
No, that man's a savage. Don't let him tell you otherwise.
Good basketball player, too. I've played basketball now with Pat more than once. He's surprisingly got a good jump shot. Derek Brown, our boy CJ Stroud. Rookie record, 400 plus passing yards. Just an incredible. Meanwhile, poor Bryce Young throwing more touchdowns for the other team to return, getting more touchdowns, I think, than Bryce Young did yesterday. But CJ Stroud, I want to make it about him because that was our number 1 quarterback on the board in NFL draft season for the rookies. It feel like in Superflex leagues, he's going to end up being a league winner with all the quarterback injury attrition that's happened this year. Do you agree?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do, Joe. I love it, man. And how about them S2 scores, baby?
How about them S2 scores?
How about them S2 scores, huh?
That just goes to show you, Derek got amazing S2 scores, and look at his performance every week on this show. So,
man,
not everything.
Gotta say the correlation stands.
Correlation stands. All right, let's get to the waiver wire pickups of the week. And don't forget, we're also giving away free stuff. So the winner of the autographed Dak Prescott Dallas Cowboys jersey, they put up a fight, but they fell short, from pristineauction.com, is Young Krillo. He is not a rapper. He's just a fan of the show. Oh, he could be a rapper too, but Young Krillo, you're the big winner. So join us, sit us up and over at Mailbag at FantasyPros.com with your mailing address and proof of your subscription to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. And we will get in touch with you right away. Again, Young Krillo, you are the winner. So again, email us at Mailbag at FantasyPros.com, which, gentlemen, that means we got something new to give away this week. And I love this one. This is amazing. If you're struggling with fantasy punishments this year, we've got you covered. Give the last place loser in your league the trophy they deserve by immortalizing their epic failure with Trophy Smack's teeny tiny loser belt. The teeny tiny loser belt. It's written all over it too, literally. And to win it, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below. That's it. And of course, we're going to announce the winner right here on the channel. So make sure you turn on those notifications so you know when you are the big winner. And every time a piece of content drops here on the channel, the little teeny tiny belt. It's so cute. It's so adorable. All right, let's get to it, boys. Let's get to the waiver wire pickup of the week. And it might be controversial, but that's what we do here at Fantasy Pros. I know a lot of people expect it to be Keaton Mitchell. We'll talk about him in a second, but we're going to go with volume instead. And we're going to go with Demario Douglas, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. And no, it's not because I'm a Patriot fan, but Demario Douglas, 44% rostered. He is the sleeper waiver wire pickup of the week because we are looking for volume and consistency down the stretch. So let's talk about why we anointed him, gentlemen, because Pat, We had this discussion last night. We went back and forth on a couple players, and we landed on Douglas. If you look in the last couple weeks, 6 targets, 7 targets since coming out of the bye. The consistency of the target volume is there. That's important. Volume is king here in the NFL. He's got 2 finishes right now of the last 3 in that wide receiver 3, the top 36 here. So that is also important. I know the Patriots offense isn't great, Pat, but Douglas feels like the best use of fab for short and long-term runs. Tell the people why we landed on Demario Douglas this week as our sleeper waiver wire pickup of the week.
I started him in 2 leagues this week, Joe. I think the floor here is what's pretty attractive. And I think we kind of saw the floor this past week. 5 for 55, no touchdowns, but that's solid. That's a double-digit PPR day. Led the Patriots with 53 snaps and 38 routes. No more Kendrick Bourne. So Douglas, I think, is going to be their wide receiver 1. It's not going to be the perennially disappointing Juju Smith-Schuster. It's certainly not going to be Jalen Reagor. The Patriots, they've got a couple of tight ends who catch passes, but they don't really have a high-volume tight end on the roster. So Douglas was a guy who really popped for the Patriots in training camp. Like every day you were seeing reports about how Demario Douglas was just shining in practices. And I think we're seeing that come to fruition. This guy is an overachieving day 3 draft pick from Liberty University. And, I think he is now the number 1 receiver for the Patriots and a reliable possession receiver going forth, like a weekly wide receiver 3.
Yep.
Even if low-end wide receiver 3, a guy you can feel good about starting in PPR or half-point PPR every week.
DBro, again, we every Sunday night, the 3 of us get together and we kind of talk this out and hash it out. And I think it's really good because I think that's good process when 3 people get in together and then start talking about the different angles of who we're going to recommend as that top person this week. Pat's talking about the consistency in the floor. Is that also what you see in Douglas?
I'm going to see the floor, but I think the ceiling is firmly there as well. Looking at his usage over the last few weeks, this is a guy that's been top 30 in both PFF receiving grade and yards per route run. Now we're talking about, okay, Juju's back in the lineup. He's still leading the team in receiving categories. And you look at the upcoming matchup, not even talking about the overall offensive complexion of the Patriots. This is quietly a team that ranks 2nd in neutral pace and 6th in neutral passing rate. So Mac Jones has been tossing the ball all over the yard. That's not going to stop. So Douglas, I think there's also a ceiling that we need to discuss here as well. And if you're looking at after his week 11 bye, they come out of the bye and they place the Chargers and the Steelers, who are allowing the 5th and 11th most receiving yards respectively to slot wide receivers. So not only is there a high floor here with the weekly volume and the passing volume in this Patriots offense, there is a ceiling to be had. We just haven't seen it yet, but it's coming. It's coming.
What do you want to bid on him this week? What's the price for fab? I know we're all kind of in that. Maybe we got 25% of our fab left at best. Maybe that's where we're at. So I don't know if it's an empty the tank situation, but it feels like a little bit more of a maybe, 5 to 8% of what you have left. Unless you're desperate for a wide receiver, in which case maybe more.
I think it's 8 to 10%. Like, I'm willing to be aggressive. Like, if you've got 25% left, anywhere from 8 to even blowing half of what you have left, I think it's perfectly viable. Because
we're getting close to that time. I mean, like
what Pat talked about, how much left do we have as far as gyms that are going to hit the waiver wire? Do we have a lot of these guys, especially if you're hurting at wide receiver? Because we've talked about this in previous weeks, in previous shows. Wide receiver is absolutely and totally different than running back. It's not just the snaps. It's, do you have the talent to garner the target share? That's not just going to be handed to you. You have to run the routes and get open to earn the targets.
Sure.
So especially a wide receiver, being aggressive on these guys that pop and show they can earn the target shares is definitely, there's merit there.
Pat, what about you? Are you the same spot in terms of spend for Douglas?
Yeah, 5 to 10% if he is just a depth piece for you. But if you need a starting wide receiver, I'd be willing to go up to 20.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
There just aren't many teams wide receiver ones still available on waivers right now.
This might be
your last
offense, but
yeah.
But again, possession wide receivers, that's what the Patriots offense has been built on for decades now. Let's get to Keaton Mitchell, because that's the thing I'm sure people are surprised about. And here, This is what we came to at the end of the day, boys and girls. We came to this decision, which is he's still behind Gus Edwards. He's still behind Justice Hill. The big touchdown run that he had was already 23-3, I think, at the time in that game, or 20-3 at that time. It was late in the third quarter. So a lot of this work did come in the garbage time. Now, it's not to say it wasn't impressive. It's not to say that he doesn't have the speed that's very exciting. He is an undrafted free agent, though. He is a rookie. This is a team with aspirations. So it's not that Mitchell is not a good ad this week, D. I think what we're trying to say is if you have waiver priorities, he might be a guy that's buried a little bit on the depth chart going forward because they're going to be playing high profile games. And I don't know how much Mitchell you're going to see in those games. Whereas Douglas, we know, I think, how much we're going to see in him. He just seems like the safer, better investment. Not that Mitchell's a bad one, but in terms of trying to figure out like who the top guy is to talk about this week. What about Mitchell's performance stood out to you, and how do you want to approach him, Derek? Let's talk about him.
I mean, I'll go ahead and lead off with this. I'm probably the wet blanket here on Keaton Mitchell. I'll own that. But the things that you talked about, Joe, is Keaton Mitchell, the talent is there, the speed is there. I question the opportunity. And with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, both of those guys started off, they were splitting snaps in the first quarter. They split snaps in the second quarter. It wasn't until later in the game, like Mitchell didn't even get a snap until the second quarter of the game. And then we're talking about all these noisy factors like Gus Edwards. He obviously was healthy enough to play, but in a blowout game, we didn't see him at all in the second half, basically. And so with that, if this is a tighter game, will we see more Gus Edwards? Would Keaton Mitchell have even seen the field?
Right.
I mean, because he only played 14%, he only played 18% of the snaps. 14 snaps. That's all he got. Now, was he amazing on those with 10 touches and 134 total yards? Absolutely. But we also have to discuss the other side of the coin with, if this was a closer game and Keaton Mitchell didn't even see the field, we would not even be talking about him this week.
Right.
So that downside is there. So for everybody, I'm going to say temper the expectations, 3 to 5% of your fab. And don't be surprised if he does get sent back to the bench. If this is Gus Edwards, assuming health, if the toe is not a thing, and assuming health that he plays, this is Gus Edwards and Justice Hill's split backfield. And if this becomes a three-way committee, I mean, how good would you feel about Keaton Mitchell at that point anyway, even if that were to happen?
Agreed. He is just 3% rostered on Sleeper right now, Pat, and understandably so. And Derek brings up a great point, which is if this game was different yesterday, this discussion would be different yesterday. And I know people are going to just see the stat line and run to that. And it's not to say that he's not interesting to add. Of course he is. I think we all agree that talent is talent, speed is speed in this version of the NFL we're in. But what's your take on Mitchell? What you saw yesterday, what you think people should be having in terms of expectations for him off the waiver wire?
Fun to have a really fast running back from East Carolina in the league again. Kind of like CJ2K. So, the game script is what really kind of throws a wrench into the analysis because we don't know how much of Mitchell's big day against a Seattle defense that just didn't have anything yesterday.
Yeah. And they just win at the end in the fourth, too. Let's be honest. That team just
pretty much. So is Keaton Mitchell a guy who in week 10 is going to go out and get, a dozen snaps and 4 touches, and you're wondering why you spent 40% of your fab budget on him? Or does Todd Monken look at his performance and say, wow, this is a dimension we don't have in our backfield. Justice Hill is fast, but Keaton Mitchell is a different level of fast. So maybe they start endeavoring to look for additional ways to get Keaton Mitchell involved. But yeah, I would caution against anyone assuming that he is going to have a substantial role forward. We just don't know that. So I'd be really careful about how you spend your fab money on this one. And if someone wants to blow you out of the water with a 50% bid, I don't think you should feel too terrible about that. And, okay, he's yours. Just time to move on.
Yeah, definitely sounds like that to me. Let's get to the rest of the running backs. Before we do, don't forget, it's time to separate the pretenders from the contenders, and we're about halfway through that NFL season. But DraftKings Sportsbook is still pumping out unbeatable offers every single game, and new customers can bet just $5 on anything to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. In fact, you're going to want to join us over on our Betting Pros channel because the three of us are going to be breaking down the Week 10 slate and the early look-ahead value later today. So join us there for that. But DraftKings doesn't stop. No, all customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every single game day. So get in on the football action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the app now and use that promo code FantasyPros. New customers can bet just $5 on anything to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only at DraftKings Sportsbook with that promo code FantasyPros. The crown is yours. Let's get back to the running backs here and let's talk about some of the remaining guys. We've got Antonio Gibson, 47% rostered on Sleeper, Rico Dowdle of the Cowboys at 5% rostered, and Leonard Fournette at 35% rostered. So trying to take a look here and look at the tea leaves and figure out what's going on here. Gibson's a guy, Pat, that works in that passing game a little bit. The Commanders came out with another victory yesterday, and certainly Gibson is one of these depth pieces I think is interesting down the stretch. Rico Dowdle, to me, I think is a piece the Cowboys need to start utilizing more. I don't know if that's a hot take, but from watching that game, it seems like they should get him the ball a little bit more between the tackles, let Tony Pollard be Tony Pollard, and try to figure out a way down the stretch to get him more active. I think everybody's going to spend money on Keaton Mitchell, but Rico Dowdle's kind of just floating under there for a buck or two. You could probably get him still. And then Leonard Fournette, again, this is a matter of what does it look like down the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season? So, Pat, when you're looking at these guys, how do you target them, not target them, spend on them? Which ones are appealing to you and why?
I love Gibson, but the reason I'm going to pass on him is because we always see this. He gets thrown into fumble jail. Mm-hmm. It takes him weeks to get back into the good graces of the Washington coaching staff, especially Ron Rivera, who is the fumble jail jailer in this instance. And then just when Gibson is getting his workload back up, he's going to fumble and he's going to go back to the bench. And if you're starting him that week, you're in trouble because maybe he had 3 touches before he fumbled. So avoiding him. Dowdle, I agree with you, Joe, on how maybe he should be used. But at this point, I think for practical purpose, he's still in the handcuff class.
I know.
And Fournette actually does kind of interest me. And it's funny, like last year I thought Rachaad White should be playing more. But the Buccaneers really trust Leonard Fournette because of his chops on passing downs and not a bad runner either at this relatively late stage of his career. And Rachaad White and James Cook just happen to be like next door neighbors in my rankings every week, waving to each other as they're mowing the lawn. So I wonder if Fournette might have the same sort of effect where, like he does eat into Cook's workload significantly and have like a fantasy relevant role down the stretch. I could see it. I'm not going to make a huge bid on Fournette, but he is a depth piece I'm interested in adding.
So what does that bid look like?
Maybe up to 10%. If I need depth at running back.
All right, up to 10%. All right, so Fournette, Gibson, Dowdle, again, these are 3 guys that I think are on a lot of people's radars right now. Who is the most important one of that group to you, if any, Derek?
I'm with Pat. You can miss me on any Antonio Gibson stuff. Same role. He just happened to get the touches. Before that, were you happy about having Antonio Gibson the previous 3 weeks? 4 touches, 7 touches? Probably not. No. So keep avoiding him. You'll probably be fine. With Leonard Fournette, I understand Pat's point. I just think Lynn is dust. You look at the last few years, especially last year with the Buccaneers, all of his tackle breaking metrics were near the bottom of the league. I just don't think he has much left in the tank. Now, is he better than Latavius Murray at this point? Probably, especially with the pass catching chops. So 2 to 3%, that's totally fine if you want to, toss your hat into that ring. Rico Dowdle is the guy that I do want to talk about, though, because as Pat has brought up on previous shows, we're getting even closer to handcuffing and stuffing season, people.
It is.
So
it's that season. Where's that T-shirt, by the way? Can we get that shirt in our merchandise shop here at Fantasy Pros? For goodness,
that would be beautiful.
For goodness sake,
that would be absolutely
handcuffing
fantastic.
and stuffing. And I want it to be, it's like a turducken kind of thing. I want it to be like a turkey with Pat's face on a turducken. 100%. Yeah, that's 100% what it is. Anyway, Rico Dowdle.
Anyway, side note, Rico Dowdle, though. But I think if you look at Mike McCarthy's unwavering faith in Dowdle, because even in the offseason when everybody was like, oh, Malik Davis, McCarthy was out here like, no, it's Rico Dowdle. It's always been Rico Dowdle. So looking at garnering those handcuffs right now is really where we need to be because, yes, injuries can strike, backfields can change. We see it every single week. We see it every single season. So 1 to 2% on Rico Dowdle. And I think a few of these other names we have here on the docket are probably a little more appealing considering I'm not going after Gibson and I'm Uncle Lenny. You could stay on the couch.
All right. Roschon Johnson, Miles Sanders. You want to send those guys to the couch? You want to drop those guys?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. How about you, Pat? I know it's been tough. Like, we like Roschon as a player, but with Herbert impending return, hopefully in the weeks ahead, only getting 2 carries yesterday, it feels like a bad situation for him. But what about Miles Sanders? You want to hang on to him, Pat, or is he droppable with Chuba getting the basically his run of the backfield going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not spite dropping him just because he is one Chuba injury away from now being, having that gig mostly to himself. I'm more willing to get rid of Roschon because I think that is going to be a committee no matter what. It's going to be Foreman and Roschon for now, and eventually Khalil Herbert comes back to make things really messy. I mean, they're even giving Darrington Evans snaps right now. So, like, this hope that Roschon would eventually turn out to be the clear lead guy in Chicago, I don't think that's going to materialize.
All right, we keep talking about handcuff and stuff and all kinds of stuff here on the show. I want to know from you guys, who is your favorite of these remaining guys out there? Kenneth Gainwell, Tajay Spears, Zach Charbonnet, Elijah Mitchell. Pat, of those 4, who's your favorite?
Charbonnet by a mile. And
Charbonnet by a mile. Okay.
Yeah, and it's because he very valuable handcuff, and I think why he's playing more and why he's outsnapped Kenneth Walker the last 2 weeks is because Walker is dealing with this calf issue. But maybe it's not entirely that, because we know Pete Carroll believes in a meritocracy, and Charbonnet's played really well, and he has, I think, earned himself more time. So even if Walker is still the lead guy here, I think Charbonnet is still going to get some significant snaps going forward, even once Walker's healthy.
DBro, you echo those sentiments?
Yeah, Charbonnet is my first guy here. Tajay Spears be number 2, but Charbonnet, while the touches didn't reflect it, second week in a row of him leading this backfield in snaps. He played 55% of the snaps. So while the volume wasn't there, the usage was. So Charbonnet by a mile, totally with Pat on that one. And Tajay Spears, the other guy I'll bring up here, he's top 5 in basically every efficiency metric I can find. If anything were to happen, and we keep saying this, but
we're
it's
not willing
true.
it. We don't wish it, but if anything were to happen.
If anything were to happen, Tajay Spears would be a top 12 to 15 running back, plug and play, set it and forget it, weekly, if anything happened to Henry.
All right. Before we get to the wide receivers to talk about this week, I don't know if you all caught it, but our boys Bogman and Welsh went to the World Series last week. And they did so by getting their tickets on the Game Time app. So we talk about Game Time app here. The boys were out there. Welsh is living in Arizona. Bogman lived there for a while, lives in Texas, came back. Those 2 guys got to go to the Diamondbacks World Series game. Unfortunately, didn't go the way they wanted, but they got their seats through Game Time. So I'm telling everybody, this is the way to do it. The best way to get tickets for any game is on the Game Time app, the official ticketing app of the FantasyPros Fantasy Football Podcast. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you peace of mind with your purchase, and they let you see your view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. They're all in pricing, shows you your total upfront costs, so you don't worry about hidden fees. You always get a great deal, all that stuff, and it takes no time at all. You can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. That's it. That's all you need to do. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem that promo code FantasyPros for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code FantasyPros. That's FantasyPros, all one word, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Let's see if we can guarantee some wide receiver productivity. Odell Beckham Jr., a sighting again in garbage time on his birthday. He got a touchdown from Huntley. I don't know what we want to make of that, but talk about spite dropping. Pat, I spite dropped Odell this last week because I was so mad at him. And of course, I put Shaheed in. He did nothing. Odell had a touchdown, so I'm just furious. 36% rostered. It seems like neither of you want to be chasing this, though, correct? You're not chasing Odell?
Nope, not chasing.
All right, so
his
let's move on to the next.
His first time over 50 yards and his first touchdown all season. So,
but is that because of the health, Pat? Like, should we? I guess here's the thing: should we know better? Like, the guy didn't play football for a year. He's coming off the ACLs. He's older. Is this the okay? We're gonna just kind of baby him, get him through, and then can he be productive? Like, are we overlooking him, Pat?
He's, Joe, at this point, I mean, I know the New York Giants era Odell was something special, but I think at this point he is just a wisp of that Odell Beckham.
A wisp of his old. What about Quentin Johnston? He plays tonight. Now, the Joshua Palmer injury is one of those things now that I think throws a new life. Last week we were talking about, well, it just seems like things aren't going Quentin Johnston's way. We can drop him. And then the Josh Palmer injury happens, and now he's going to be out for several weeks. So now has he been brought back to life, Derek? Like, are we back on Quentin Johnston, who right now is 42% rostered? A lot of people did agree and see it the same way we did, which is like, we can't wait around all day. It was good to add him to see. It did work. We dropped. Now is the time to speculatively add again.
If y'all dropped him, you need to pick him right back up. Okay. I mean, I talked about this previously. Like, yes, 3 to 6%. If you need to go a little more aggressively, I'm totally fine with that as far as spend on him. But walking into this Jets matchup, looking back to last week with Palmer still in the lineup, we saw QJ have a 63% route run rate. That's going to go up this week with no Palmer in the lineup. Yes, I know Jalen Guyton's probably going to be active. He's going to be out there doing his wind sprints. That's fine. But with QJ, we saw last week 15% target share, 1.9 yards per route run. This guy does have the talent. And now the Chargers have been backed into a corner. They have no choice but to play their talented first-round wide receiver and see what he can do. So as that type of lottery ticket, because he is going to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense, they're running a committee of tight ends, so good luck with those. But with QJ, the upside is still there. We could still see the talent flourish down the stretch. And I want to throw this in there because I don't want this to go under the radar too far into this show. Joe, I like the impact that I do have on you after weeks
this
and
is
weeks.
behind the curtain stuff.
You did say y'all.
This
you
is behind the curtain stuff. Okay. And I was going to bring it up after you were done talking, but you beat me to the punch here. So in our private chat here.
So you can't bury it. You said y'all.
So we're recording. Apparently, I said y'all. And I didn't even realize I said it, which just tells you why I need to take a few days off.
Did y'all see Bogman and Welsh? It's there.
That's when I said it. You're right. Play the clip. So there you have it, everybody. So that's clearly the indication that my upcoming vacation later in this week it's time. I've spent too much time officially with
I'm going to text you y'all daily just because
Derek,
it needs to
what's
stay
your
in your brain.
spend on QJ now to pick him back up?
Anywhere from 3 to 6%. If you need to go a little more aggressively, like 8 to 9%, I'm fine with it.
All right. We don't know what he's going to do tonight in this contest against the Jets, but I don't know if we could judge it regardless because it's a good defense. Pat, again, now injury presents opportunity. Mike Williams gone, Josh Palmer gone, QJ back.
Yeah, I'm saying 6 to 7%, Joe. And the funny thing is, though, your bidding can probably be calibrated on how he plays against the Jets tonight. Like, and if he gets skunked, which is entirely possible against Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, he's going to be dirt cheap. You can probably get him for a $2 bid when you put your waiver claims in Tuesday or Wednesday. So, yeah, but I agree with DBro. Like, he's out of necessity, he has to be more involved in this offense going forward, and he's tied to one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Everyone else is playing checkers, but Pat Fitzmaurice is playing chess with the waiver wire. Look at that. Love it. So good. Let's get to Zay Jones. He's had a lot of injuries this year, Pat. 31% rostered. That's why he is 31% rostered, because of the injuries. But they're coming off a bye. Maybe we get Zay Jones back and healthy. I know it's kind of a crowded wide receiver room, but is he worth an ad, Pat, speculatively?
It's crowded. I think he has some low-level standalone value because of how effective he always seems to be inside the red zone, like kind of the touchdown specialist making the acrobatic grabs for 6 points. And he's also kind of a handcuff back. Like if anything were to happen to either Christian Kirk or Calvin Ridley, all of a sudden Zay Jones is the guy you want in your starting lineup every week. So yeah, I think he's a pretty good depth ad.
DBro, Zay Jones?
Apparently we're in the market of wide receiver handcuffing and stuff in this week, but you know. Hey, I love Zay Jones, though. I love the call by Pat. And that's when I wrote him up for the waiver wire article, which is already live on FantasyPros.com. Go check it out. See, professional plugs. But with Zay Jones, the thing that stood out to me was, even though he has not been healthy, that man has 2 red zone targets in every game he's played in this year. So, yes, the red zone role is absolutely there. And we talk about chasing volume, but chasing touchdowns, too. While that can be noisy, Trevor Lawrence has proven time and time again, when they get in the red zone, they look for Zay Jones. So it's a good spot to chase touchdowns if you're going to. Yeah, I'm in on spending for Zay. I think 2 to 3% is probably all you need to throw out there if he's out there in your league.
Well, if you're not into spending too much for new tires, see, that's how a professional really does it. You need new tires for your car. Discount Tire is your go-to. They have exceptional service, and you get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online at discounttire.com. They have this really cool feature called Treadwell, which is an online tire buying guide that gives you transparency on tire performance, as well as personalized recommendations based on your location and driving habits. Discount Tire is also the largest independent tire retailer in the country, so it has the biggest selection of tires and wheels. And here's a pro tip from the experts at Discount Tire. You can prevent wear and boost gas mileage even by keeping your tires properly inflated. Tire pressure supports the weight of your vehicle and is important to check for safety. So if it has been over a month since you last checked your tire pressure, stop by one of their local stores for a free tire safety and air pressure check. Discount Tire. Let's get you taken care of. Pat, you're the one that keeps this show properly inflated at all times. Thank goodness you're here. I want to talk about two other guys, low rostered guys, deeper league kind of situations. Kyle Phillips, 2% rostered. Tennessee Titans. Then you've got Noah Brown, who had himself a day like everybody else with CJ Stroud for the Texans. Brown is just 4% rostered, as one would imagine. Probably all dynasty shares, I would guess. I don't know. Although it's 27 years old right now for Noah Brown. So are you chasing either of these two, Pat, this week in the deeper leagues?
Maybe in deeper leagues, Joe. Deeper PPR leagues, there could be some low-level depth value. Kyle Phillips might get more work, more snaps, more targets in the coming weeks if Treylon Burks misses time. We saw Burks get hurt at the end of that Thursday night game against the Steelers. So, and it appeared that Will Levis was really comfortable throwing to him. So I think he could be usable the next few weeks. And Noah Brown, his window might be a little smaller. I think when Robert Woods comes back, that probably spells the end of fantasy relevance for Noah Brown. But maybe if you need someone to pinch hit for you in week 10, and someone you can probably add for just $1 on waivers, Noah Brown might be a reasonable option.
Noah Brown, Kyle Phillips, DBro, streamers, deep league ads. What do you think?
Deep league ads, but I'm not throwing out anything more than like a $1 bid for either one of them. I think Pat hit it perfectly. As soon as Robert Woods is back, Noah Brown is going back to the bench. Kyle Phillips only played 30% of the snaps. Really, his speculative upside is if Treylon Burke misses time here, and even at that point, he's still second or third on this team in targets probably. I mean, we're probably going to see more of an elevation for Nick Westbrook-Akine. Maybe Chig gets some more targets. I don't really want to chase either one of these guys, but if you can get them in deeper leagues for just a min bid, that's fine.
All right. What about Jameson Williams, Josh Reynolds coming off a bye? DBro, who would you rather have?
Ooh, I'll take the upside with Jameson Williams. Coming off the bye, we have not seen him play a full-time role in this offense. And coming off the bye, if that is going to happen at any time this year, have to assume it happens after the bye. And the thing, I get that he's not been a full-time player, but 15.1 ADOT, 25% target per route run rate. When he's been out there, he's been used. So if the snaps go up, the targets are going to go up. And this week, going against the Chargers, they've been giving it up. They're top 10 in deep passing yards and adjusted completion rate allowed to deep passing. So if there's ever a week for Jameson Williams to pay off, it's hopefully this one.
Williams or Reynolds?
Yeah, I guess Williams. I'm going to give into the draft capital here, but man, we have not seen a lot from Jameson. I just wonder, does he not fit in with Dan Campbell's culture or something? Like, I feel there's probably a story behind the scenes we're not getting on that, but like JMO just has not popped yet.
An incredible college talent. He has not translated yet for sure. All right. What about dropping guys? Josh Palmer, yes or no, Pat? You want to drop him with his injury?
Yeah, I think so, now that he's on IR. And when he comes back, we're going to need a prove-it game before we're willing to stick him in our lineups. And by that time,
that's like December.
The sun is setting on the season, exactly.
Yeah. Michael Wilson, you want to drop him here, Derek Brown, or do you want to hold out hope for Kyler Murray return?
No, drop.
Okay, so two guys to drop
I'm holding out hope on Michael Wilson when Kyler gets back. Yeah, I think Michael Wilson's most valuable fantasy days might be ahead of him this season.
Only if he plays zone coverage, because against man coverage, he gets no targets.
Fair enough. All right, let's get to some of the streamers of the week. At quarterback, Derek Brown, who are you streaming in week 10?
All right, well, I woke up feeling dangerous, baby. Baker Mayfield versus the Tennessee Titans. We know that how you beat this defense is through the air. Has to be 7th highest pass rating, 7th highest yards per attempt allowed. So I'm not telling you it's going to be great. I'm not telling you to watch the game. But Baker Mayfield could be a QB1 this week.
I think Mayfield's done enough this year to hold that job next year. I think they should just keep him. I really do. I think they should keep him. Fitz,
I think it's going to be interesting where they're at in the draft, maybe.
It depends. Possible. Depends on where they end up with the draft capital. But at this point, I don't know. It's starting to feel like it might be his gig next year. Pat, what about streaming QBs this week? Who do you in on?
Oh, man. How about Taylor Heineke against an Arizona defense that managed to make Deshaun Watson look like Houston-era Deshaun Watson a little bit in Week 9? And, while Heineke might have talent limitations, he's not afraid to throw downfield or to run. So I think there's some potential streaming upside here for Week 10.
Pat, tight end streamer for Week 10 is who?
Oh, DBro's going to hate me on this one. Gerald Everett. I think, first of all, Tennessee's given up the third most fantasy points to tight ends. And with all the wide receiver injuries for the Chargers, it makes sense that they're going to lean more heavily on their tight ends.
I like that.
And Austin Eckler, of course, but the tight ends too. So I think Everett's in play this week.
DBro, let the hate flow through you and pick a tight end.
I don't hate the player. I hate the tight end rotation, but it is what it is. Hunter Henry is the guy that I'm going to bring up here. We saw him play his highest snap share since week 2. I think a lot of that's been health related. 15% target share. He got in the end zone last week. I think he could do it again this week versus the Colts, allowing the 9th most receiving yards to tight ends and the 6th most fantasy points per game. So Hunter Henry, if you got him, start him.
All right, let's get to the defenses. Derek Brown, do you want to stream at the defense in week 10?
Well, have defense, play Sam Howell. Stream said defense. We're going with Seattle here, baby. And look, I know Howell has been playing well. This is not an admonishment about like his talent, what he's been doing on the field. I get all of that. He's still taking sacks. Still, we can count on some turnovers. Seattle is 12th in pressure rate, 9th in QB knockdown, so they can get after the quarterback, and they should be in your lineup this week.
Nice vocab, admonishment. You don't get enough of that. Fitzy, who's your streaming defense of the week? I know, it's all that time we spend with Fitz. It's like,
I know,
it's like that word of the day toilet paper, just every time, just makes you a little smarter.
Fitz gives us really smart words, and I give everybody y'all. So
seriously,
we've got our own talents.
How about the Raiders playing all loosey-goosey when they were no longer under the heel of the villainous Josh McDaniels?
Man.
So how inspiring
the Raiders
was Antonio Pierce in that locker room after that game? I wanted to run through a wall for that guy. It was a great clip, and he's such a great leader on the Giants. Dude. You know, those Giants teams beat up on my Patriots. They robbed me of that perfect season, but I had so much respect for that defense in particular. But
those victory cigar vibes, baby.
I know, man.
Pat, you think Pierce, you think like, I don't say the Raiders go on a run, but it seems like these guys, like it's the same thing happened with Brescia, right? Where, you know, they let him run with it and he did a great job, got into playoffs, all that stuff. Do you think like this time they're going to learn their lesson and Pierce might be that guy? Because they seem to love him.
Yeah, it's funny, Joe. Early in the week, last week, I bet the Giants plus 1.5 because I figured it was going to be Josh McDaniels, and I bet against Josh McDaniels every week.
Yep.
Then he got fired. The line went up to 3.5, but like I wanted the bet back. Even with the extra 2 points, I felt worse about that bet, knowing that the Raiders were probably going to give an inspired performance under a coach not named Josh McDaniels. So, yes. I would not be surprised if they won some games in the weeks ahead.
Did y'all see the video come out from Jay Glazer, too, about the McDaniels explanation about how McDaniels and Pierce got up in front of the team and the entire team, like captains, everybody is just railing Josh McDaniels. And Antonio Pierce talks about, he gives this long speech about how versus the Giants and going against the Patriots, that they felt they could beat anybody. And that's what this team needs to do. And McDaniels immediately pulls him aside and says, don't ever talk about the Patriots that way. What? I
don't know if I buy that, but Glazer's really pretty good. By the way, apologies to my paisan. It's Bisaccia. I said Brescia. That's another person that I know. So it's just early in the morning still. So Rich Bisaccia, I'm sorry. Richie, you should have gotten that job. And Richie, I love you.
Gotta apologize. Apologize to the people.
Well, I do. Especially the Italians. I can't get the Italian name.
I know.
And Joe, by the way, the Raiders are playing the Jets, and it's Zach Wilson. So coaching aside, they're also any defense going against Zach Wilson.
I
thumbs
cannot
up.
wait, by the way, for a Black Friday football game. That's going to be fun. I know it's, the Jets, but whatever. Black Friday football sounds like a good time to me. Let's get to the top ads of the week, Fitz. Why don't you kick things off? 1 through 5, who are your top ads for week 10?
All right, Demario Douglas is at the top. Then Zach Charbonnet is number 2. Number 3, I'll throw in Keaton Mitchell just as a flyer on a guy who could possibly work his way into a bigger role. I'm not expecting it, but it could happen. Number 4, how about Josh Dobbs?
How about Josh Dobbs? Rocket scientist, Josh Dobbs.
Rocket scientist. He runs aggressively. He's not a bad passer. Eventually, he's going to get Justin Jefferson back. Like, I think he could have low-level QB1 value down the stretch.
Ooh, I don't disagree.
If you're
I
looking,
don't disagree either.
Yeah, if you have had a hole at quarterback all year, maybe Josh Dobbs is the answer. And number 5, I'll throw playoff Lenny in there, Leonard Fournette.
What a crazy thing to think about, too. A roller coaster. Like, if Dobbs plays really well, they get in the playoffs. Wow. Do they look at Dobbs and say, well, we can go cheap with Dobbs and we can get rid of Cousins and move on? Like, there's going to be, and Cousins would be very coveted. There's so many teams that would want Cousins. I mean, if you drop Cousins with the Atlanta Falcons offense, my God, how much better would they be? But that's going to be fascinating to see. DBro, your 1 through 5 waiver wire priorities for week 10.
Pat and I are hand-holding on the top 2 guys, Demario Douglas and Zach Charbonnet. Number 3, I'll differ on the flyer I want to take, so I'll go Quentin Johnston. Number 4, Tajay Spears. And number 5, I'm going to roll it out with Jameson Williams. If there's ever a week, baby.
If there's ever a week. Let's hit our listener mailbag at fantasypros.com/chat. Join our Discord there. It's free to join. This one's from Cubecasts. Drop Josh Reynolds for Keaton Mitchell and half-point PPR. You want to make that move, D-Bro?
Depends on what you need. If you need a starter for this week, then no, I'm keeping Reynolds. If you need a long-term, possibly more upside add, then yeah, I have no problem going Mitchell.
Fitz, same feeling?
I'm assuming this is a flyer, like a bench flyer. So I'm on board. I'm on board with taking the shot at Mitchell.
I'm on board with taking a shot at Mitchell, too. I think I'd rather have Mitchell there. So don't forget, everybody, the boys have you covered for all the waiver wire needs that you have, as does my playbook. You can always download the app. Make sure you use the waiver assistant and make sure you hit up fantasypros.com to check out the waiver wire article and the waiver wire ranks every single week. They get updated as well by Pat and Derek and our team here at Fantasy Pros. Always amazing work that they all do, so make sure you check that out. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below so you can get that teeny tiny little loser trophy for your favorite person in your league. Yes, you can. It's going to be so adorable. You get the little loser trophy. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Pat Fitzmaurice and Derek Brown, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Y'all come back now. You hear?
See y'all later.